Ladies and gentlemen, the transfer window is now officially over. All the deals are done. All the teams know what players they have, what players they don't have, who they could sign, who they couldn't sign. I'm going to give them a rating, a tier list rating, and yeah, we'll just see how they did. I'll also give my league predictions as I go along, I guess. So let's go alphabetically. We'll start with Arsenal. Now, I think Arsenal's transfer business has been quite solid for what they intend to do. Arsenal, last couple of seasons, they finished second in the league. They're looking to go one step closer, and they know they've got to compete with a Liverpool side who have spent a lot of money and are very dominant, a Man City side who are inevitably going to come back. You've got a Chelsea side who have just become the world champions. So Arsenal needed to spend big, and that is what they've done. But what they've done is they've invested a lot in depth. The likes of Hincapié, who they've got in on deadline day, Mosquera, add to the depth in the back. Madueke is a great option out wide to accompany Saka and Martinelli, Trossard, and one of their new signings, Eberechi Eze, who I think is going to be a great addition to Arsenal. But the big man that everyone talks about with Arsenal is Victor Gyökeres, and in the first 3 games, I mean, he's got 2 goals, both against Leeds United, and a lot of people mention his time in Sporting about how he scored a lot of goals against the lower end sides in Liga Portugal, and I don't know why I said it like that. It's League Portugal. Talk properly, Dylan. But Gyökeres is a great option up front and could be the striker that Arsenal have needed. They spent just over 60 million for him, so for the kind of striker he is and the fact that he's in a prime age and he is a bagsman, it's a great deal for Arsenal. The players they brought in for depth and for their intent, like I said, it's great business, but I can't ignore the fact that they've lost over 250 million in one window. For that reason, I'm going to give them a transfer rating of B. I think they're going to finish 4th this season. Moving on to Aston Villa. Now, they've had a bit of a weird window. They've not been able to spend that much. PSR seemingly still an issue for Aston Villa. They've made a profit of about £17 million, and the majority of this is through the sale of Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle. Now, how important is the Jacob Ramsey sale going to be? I think right now we're starting to see it's been quite crucial. Aston Villa are one of the only teams in the Premier League, if not the only team, not to score a goal after 3 games. And with someone up front like Ollie Watkins, you know, you've got Morgan Rogers who shows a lot of creativity, but it seems to be they haven't got a lot of options in those areas. They've brought in Efan Gassan from one of the teams in France. I want to say it's Nice, but I could be wrong. He used to be a striker. I want to say he was at Palace, but I don't remember too much about him. But he now favours the 10 role or be out wide, so he's not an out-and-out striker like he used to be. But they've also brought in Jadon Sancho and Harvey Elliott from United and Liverpool respectively on loans initially. I know Elliott, there's an obligation to buy next window, but for now it's a loan deal, and they could be great options. For someone like Harvey Elliott, I think is a great move. Jadon Sancho, a bit like Rashford last season, will get a lot of game time. The signing of Victor Lindelof on a free is also a great deal, in my opinion, as a free agent especially. He's a player who has a lot of experience, spending 7 years at Man United. He'll have a lot of Premier League experience. He'll have a lot of European experience, and to play at centre-back in a position that they have someone like Tyrone Mings who has had a lot of leg injuries over the last couple of years, to have someone that experienced who can come in and go alongside Ezri Konsa is quite important. But crucially, and there's a couple of teams who have similar scenarios to this, they were able to keep hold of one of their strongest assets in Martinez. Now, there was strong rumours that he wanted to go to Manchester United. There was rumours that it was going to happen. I'd watch his space because he will likely move on within the next year or 2 years. He's in his early 30s. He's the kind of player who I can imagine going out to Saudi and getting a big paycheck, but at the moment he stays at Villa, and for Villa I think that's going to be very crucial. The fact that they've not really been able to progress as a team, in my opinion, is a little bit concerning. So I'm going to give them a transfer rating of C. I think they're going to finish 8th. So next we've got Bournemouth, and at first their business was quite concerning. 3 of their back 4 that were heavily involved last season, Huijsen, Kerkez and Zabarnyi, have all moved on to top European clubs. But this has allowed Bournemouth to make a lot of profit. They've made the 3rd biggest profit in the league with 60 million or over 60 million, and they've done quite well with their money. I thought Diakite and Truffer have been great options in the back. They've shown quite good promise to start off their Premier League seasons. Petrovic from Chelsea, and Petrovic is a keeper that I've quite enjoyed at Chelsea. I know he spent his year at Strasbourg last year, but he's an impressive keeper. He's still quite young, and I think he'll do quite well, especially with the defence that's in front of him. Amina Adli and Ben Doak will offer great depth, and the depth that Bournemouth are starting to build, I don't think they'll get there just yet, but Bournemouth are trying to show intent to make it into those European slots. I did originally have them as a D, but I've moved them up to a C because I've convinced myself about their depth. So they've got a C for the transfer window, but they're going to finish 12th, I think. The defensive losses are going to be quite significant, especially against the bigger teams. Next up, we've got Brentford, and this is going to be a fun one. There is a lot to tarnish about Brentford's window. Now, Brentford are one of those teams, like Brighton, like Bournemouth, who sell a lot of their great assets for profit and manage to find younger, better talent from places that the big teams won't ever find. But this year's a bit different because Brentford haven't just lost one person. They've lost their manager to Tottenham, they've lost their captain to Arsenal, they've lost one of their key striking assets to Manchester United and the other to Newcastle. 4 big teams that will all be up there in the European slots. And okay, they've turned over a profit of 60 million this window, but losing that many people of that high level in one window can be quite catastrophic. With the new manager being Keith Andrews, who's been within the Brentford system, he's a coach who understands the system, but he's lost a lot of his key assets. They brought in Jordan Henderson, who has a lot of experience. He's a natural leader. The signing of Kelleher from Liverpool is a great move for Kelleher. He finally gets to be the number 1 at a club. I would have taken him at Chelsea, if I'm being perfectly honest. I prefer him over the likes of Robert Sanchez. I'm sure Man United would have taken him. So for the fact that a team like Brentford have got Kelleher, it's a big move. However, I think with the team that's in front of him, he might struggle a little bit. Dango Ouattara, God knows how you pronounce his name, there's too many vowels. But he's done quite well so far. He scored 2 goals for Brentford. They've got players like Kevin Sade, Mikael Damsgaard, so there are good players within the Brentford squad. However, the losses of that nature, the big 4 that I am labelling them as, Frank, Norgard, Mbeumo and Vista, I think they're going to be too catastrophic. I have put their rating as an F. I think it's been terrible business this window. And I've got them going down, I've got them finishing 18th. That means somebody staying up. Who could it be? Next up we've got Brighton, and to be completely honest, I don't know a lot about the players that they brought in. They have brought in several players, Maxime de Kuiper, Kostelus, just to name a couple. So there are some signings there for Brighton, and I'm sure they're going to be great signings. They always are at Brighton. Really do respect their business. João Pedro will be a big loss for them, and he's already proven to be a big loss because of the amount of goals he's scoring at Chelsea, and we'll discuss him more in a minute. The likes of Buonanotte and Enciso also going over to Blueco. Obviously Enciso going to Strasbourg before he goes to Chelsea. Buonanotte going to Chelsea on loan. It's alarming at the rate of Brighton how much they're selling to Chelsea, but the main points to make are the profit that they've made and the good chances that their recruitment is going to be solid again. I've given them a rating of C. They're going to finish 9th. Next up we've got Burnley, and a lot of people straight away have got Burnley finishing 20th, rock bottom, and they're just written Burnley off already. I disagree. I actually really like the business that Burnley have done. They've spent over 100 million. Obviously spending that much money, you expect a lot in return, but they have spent it on a lot of players. A lot of that money has gone on players that they had on loan last season, the like of Marcus Edwards, Bashir Humphreys from Chelsea, Zian Fleming and Jadon Anthony. Jadon Anthony has been very good in the Premier League so far. I've really enjoyed watching him in the Premier League. He's already scored some goals, set up some goals, so he's a great asset for Burnley. They've brought in some great Premier League experience in the likes of Martin Dubravka, Axel Tuanzebe. Kyle Walker, I think, is a great signing, especially for only 5 million. Armando Broja, who is not a great striker, let's be honest, but he's there for, I guess, depth, and he will get game time. But Broja might just be a safe case in case Burnley do go down. So I think Burnley are being smart by looking at both scenarios in terms of whether they go down or whether they stay up. I think they've bought to stay up. However, the losses of Josh Brownhill, who I think was their captain, James Trafford to Man City and CJ Egan-Riley are 3 important losses for Burnley. For the relativeness of where Burnley are as a club and what their ambitions are, I think their business, like I said, has been quite good. I've given them a transfer rating of C, and I've actually got them finishing 17th. I think there are at least 3 clubs worse than Burnley, and because of the business and the players they've signed, I quite fancy them to stay up, and I really want it for Scott Parker. I think Scott Parker is a brilliant talker and a brilliant coach, and I hope that this is the season where he finally breaks through and proves himself to the Premier League. Now, talking about my lot, Chelsea. Now, how have I felt Chelsea have done? Fine. We've done fine. There's been a lot of outgoings. I think that's been the main focus for the window. We've actually sold more and got more money in than any other club in the world this window. We've surprisingly made a profit, and the words profit and Chelsea don't go in the same sentence. We've made over 30 million in profit. Now, that is because we have offloaded a load of dead weight in the club, the likes of Nkunku, João Felix, Ben Chilwell's just gone as well. Concerningly, Raheem Sterling and Disasi are still at the club, but I'm sure that they'll get offloaded either in January, or they might end up reintegrating themselves in the squad. There is a lot of games for Chelsea to play this season, and after a Club World Cup victory, there's going to be a lot of injury issues. There already has been with the likes of Levi Colwill, Cole Palmer, Liam Delap, so we've already got some injury crises. Nicholas Jackson for me is a big loss. I really like Nicholas Jackson. I wanted him to stay. I think bar his discipline, I think he is a top striker. I thought the signing of Liam Delap was intended to have Delap and Jackson compete for each other, but João Pedro's come in, and I thought João Pedro was more of a 10, but he's come in and he is just scoring so many goals, and he is going to prove to be a threat, I think. He's one of those players who a lot of people are going to have in their fantasy teams. He's not the same price as the likes of Salah or Haaland, so he'll be getting you a lot of goals. And I mean, wow, we've got to talk about Esteval. We've been waiting for a long time for Esteval to make his way to West London, and he's been very electric. He was very good against West Ham. I quite liked him against Fulham as well. I think Esteval could go on to be as important for Chelsea as Eden Hazard was, and that's bold claims. I'm aware it's bold claims, but after 3 games, I've seen enough. Esteval is going to be a sensational player. I've given Chelsea a rating of B because there are some players that we have missed out on. I know we signed 2 strikers, but the Delap injury during the window and the fact that we still let Jackson go, we should have still had it in mind to either block the deal completely or go and find a new striker rather than recall Mark Gui, who he's just going to go on loan. As soon as Delap's back, Gui's going to go back on loan wherever, I don't really know. However, I'm going to back Chelsea. I've got to back Chelsea. If they're in for a running for the title, you've got to back them. Am I confident with the decision to have them predicted first? No, but I've got to back my team, and yeah, there is a chance we do win, so I'll explain that later. I'll explain that when I get to the other team. Crystal Palace. Now, I have mixed opinions about Palace this window. With Palace, this window has been a bit interesting. They had a very quiet window with inbringings. They brought in Walter Benitez and Sosa, who, sure, I don't really know what either of them do or who they are. I think Yeremy Pino from Villarreal is going to be a great signing, and they've somehow kept Mark Gahey, which is a big talking point coming out of deadline day because it seemed surefire that he was going to join Liverpool. And for Palace, it was going to be great because he's got 1 year left on his contract and he wasn't signing a new deal, and he probably isn't going to sign a new deal. But it would have got Palace about £40 million for a player who has such a great quality about him, still young, and he's such a great leader as well. He would have done really well at Liverpool, but the rumours are Oliver Glasner, who's been a great coach, and I don't want the whole scenario to take away from how good of a coach Glasner is, but Glasner apparently threatened to walk if Gahey went, and if that is true, we still don't know the behind the scenes fully. If the reports are true, I think that's a really selfish move by Glasner, because Gahey is a player. I mean, Gahey will have international aspirations. He will be looking at... He probably is one of those players looking at the England armband, and I think he'd be a great England captain down the line. And to have that experience playing for a team that naturally wins stuff in Liverpool would have been great for Gahey. But keeping Gahey, at least for 1 more year, especially when they're in their first ever season in Europe, is crucial. I think having him there as your leader for another year and having him in the centre of your defence in the way that Glasner plays Palace, I think is a very important decision. And Glasner obviously saw the importance of keeping Gahey. Obviously, after losing Eze to Arsenal, there's obviously a lot of money there that they can reinvest. Maybe in January, maybe next summer, depending on how they do in Europe. Heads up, they'll win the Conference League. I'm calling it now. But yeah, Palace have had a very interesting window. Apart from one signing, they've not brought anyone in. I think Pino may be a like-for-like swap for Eze. We're going to just wait and see how good he's going to be in the Premier League. They've still got Mateta, who's a great goal scorer and a fantastic character. Mateta might be one of my favourite players in the Premier League right now. So with Palace, I'm going to give them a rating of D. They haven't brought enough in to progress, especially with Europe on the horizon, and the loss of Eze is significant. Keeping Gahey has salvaged them a little bit, so they've got a D, but I think they're going to finish 13th this season. Next up, we've got Everton, and At first, I was quite nervous about Everton. I think a lot of people were. With Everton the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a dark cloud around them. They've been hovering around that relegation area, but always managed to survive. However, their business this window might be one of my favourites. They had a lot of players leave on freeze, they left on expired contracts, so it was about bringing people in to cover those holes. So bringing in for depth was never going to be a thing for Everton, but to bring in better players, to strengthen their chances, to build on the momentum that David Moyes has created on the back end of last season. And I think they've done that brilliantly, especially with the new stadium. Jordan Pickford, a great leader, a great keeper, he stays. There was never really any rumours, but every year I think Jordan Pickford could be a player to leave Everton. If I'm being brutally honest, he's a player who could play at a bigger team than Everton, but he's staying, he's a loyal man, and you've got to respect it. The 4 names that I want to mention right now who I think are going to be massive for Everton, obviously the main one being Jack Grealish on loan from Man City. Now Jack Grealish is an exciting one because he's gone to Everton where he will be one of the main men, which is exactly the role he had at Villa where he flourished. David Moyes obviously enjoys Grealish being there. You know, he's a fun character, but he's also a really good footballer. And David Moyes is giving Grealish the utility, the tools to do what Grealish does best. And Grealish is publicly enjoying his time at Everton. Watch for the space next season. It would not surprise me if Man City sell Grealish to Everton, or even Grealish asks for the move to Everton permanently. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall from Chelsea is another one around the region of 25-30 million, I believe it was. Yet again, same reason as Grealish. He's not one of the main guys at Chelsea, and although we had him for a year, it makes sense for both parties. You know, he's not going to be utilised as much as Chelsea, although right now because of the Cole Palmer injury, could have done with Dewsbury-Hall being around. But him going to Everton, he's going to be the main number 10, I think. Tyler Dibbling is another exciting attacking option. He's come from Southampton, a Southampton side that were on record as one of the worst in Premier League history, but he was a bright spark in that squad. Very young, very athletic, quick, great with the ball, and for the price tag of 40 million, he's got to really prove that. He might not go in straight away, but do expect Tyler Dibbling to make some impacts at Everton. And the other one that people aren't talking about as much, and I'm surprised they're not, is Barry from Villarreal. Now, I got to see him in person in Slovakia at the under-21s, and when you watch him live, he's a very quick, very good young attacker, and he's someone I'm excited to see in the Premier League. It's just all about whether or not his skills can work in the Premier League. You know, Beto's probably the main number 9. You've got Iliman Ndiaye, who, yeah, again, is another great goal scorer. So Barry might find it hard to get in the squad at first, but Barry, when I expect him to be there, will score goals. A lot of people have had Everton lower. I think Everton are going to finish 9th this season. I really do back them to do quite well, especially under David Moyes. They could even push further. This new stadium has seemed to give Everton a new lift-off. And I think Everton are going to do well. If it was not this season, it'll be the next couple. I expect to see them back in Europe at some point. I've given their transfer window a B. Fulham now, and there's not a lot to talk about. They've only signed 3 players in Lecomte, Kevin and Chukwueze. There's not a lot to say about. They didn't get rid of many players either. Andreas Pereira's gone to Brazil. Marcel Godo's gone to Strasbourg, I think. Willian has left on a free as well. There's not a lot to say about Fulham. Can't really give them too much. I think they're going to finish 15th, and their transfer window is a D. Leeds United now, and yet again, it's another window that I've not been too impressed by. They, like their promoted counterparts, have spent over 100 million in this window, but their signings have been significantly less notable than the others. They have brought in some Premier League experience in James Justin and Sean Longstaff. They may be good signings. Noah Okafor is an exciting young attacker. Anton Stach, again, may be a solid option as well for Leeds United. They have fixed one area that has been an issue for the last couple of years, and that's the goalkeeper scenario. Meslier is still the goalkeeper at Leeds, but he's not the number 1. It seems to be Lucas Perry now. And apart from the one game against Arsenal, Perry has kept 2 clean sheets for Leeds, both at Ellen Road. So Ellen Road may become a fortress. 4 points from their opening 3 games. I think if you told any Leeds fan that they were going to get more than 2 or 3 points at the start of the season, they'd have been buzzing with that. And it's been a great start for Leeds, but I don't expect it to continue. They haven't sold, they haven't made any money, so it's going to be tough for Leeds to reinvest come January and going forward. I'm not as confident with Leeds as I am with a lot of the other teams. I do have Leeds finishing rock bottom. I've given their transfer rating a D. Liverpool, and this lot have spent nearly £500 million in one window. They broke the Premier League transfer window twice with Florian Wirtz at the start of the window and then Alexander Isak on deadline day. That Isak saga, I'll talk more about it when we get to Newcastle, has controlled the entire transfer window, and it's the reason why the window's been so exciting. All the strikers moving around like dominoes falling is because of Alexander Isak, and it took to the last day. He's now a Liverpool player. But also looking around elsewhere, the likes of Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Mamardashvili now being a permanent player at Liverpool, no longer at Valencia. Hugo Ekitike also showing signs that he's going to be an early contender for Golden Boot. Now with the Isak signing, I'm not so sure that's going to happen, but Ekitike has shown great signs to life at first. Probably one of the reasons why Liverpool took so long to decide whether they were going to go and bid for Isak. Liverpool have also done some good business with outgoings as well. Harvey Elliott has gone to Aston Villa on loan, but next year there will be a obligation to buy for about 35 million, so they'll receive that money next summer. Darwin Núñez has gone for a significant fee, as well as Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich. There's a lot to enjoy about Liverpool, and with the amount of money that they've spent, they should win either the Premier League or the Champions League, whatever one they prioritise. If not, probably both. They've got one of, if not the greatest squad on paper at the moment. I've given them a transfer rating of A. Reluctantly, they didn't get Gahey over the line. They are one of the culprits behind the Isak saga, and also the £500 million spend, or just under. There's a lot of players who need to justify that price tag now, and Florian Wirtz hasn't shown that he can do that. Ekitike certainly has shown that he can. Frimpong's got injured, which is a bit unfortunate. Kerkez is another player who hasn't shown his full potential yet, but I think he will kick on. And then Isak, he's Premier League proven. There's no doubt Isak's going to bag at least 20 goals in the Premier League alone. With that being said, I have got them finishing second for two reasons. One being is I think they will prioritise the Champions League and the latter stages of the season, but also across a league season, having so many people change over in one window, it's a tough task to ask Liverpool to retain the title when half their starting 11 has changed. Just because you've got a team of fantastic players, they still need to be able to play together, and I'm not saying they will do terribly. Second place is still decent, but I don't know, it's probably part bias on my hand, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to do a full season again. Man City now, and the main thing I want to talk about is the goalkeepers. Ederson has gone to the Turkish league. I think he's gone to Fenerbahce. I can never remember if it's Fenerbahce or Galatasaray. I think it's Fenerbahce. But what they have done is they have brought in two very strong goalkeepers. James Trafford from Burnley, who has been the #1 in the opening couple of games, but announced on the morning of this recording, Gianluigi Donnarumma has come to the Premier League. Surprisingly, Trafford was more than Donnarumma, but that's English tax, what can you do? In my opinion, Man City now have the greatest trio of goalkeepers with Donnarumma, Trafford and Ortega. The signing of Rangers, yeah, so many of these players, I cannot pronounce their names. I should have done a cheat sheet with that. But Rangers has been a great signing so far, was very impressive in that opening game against Wolves. However, Man City have struggled in the last couple of games. Whether that's a ongoing thing from last season or not, we don't know. Cherki, I'm impressed by. Aït-Nouri's a great signing as well. I have Man City finishing third, but I have still given them a B. This lot are crap, aren't they? Let's talk about Man United, and I will give them credit where credit is due. They have strengthened their attacking options really well. I like the attacking trio of Cunha and Mbeumo and Šeško. How Šeško at this point hasn't had a start in the Premier League is beyond me. And Mbeumo, for me, is probably the most reliable of the three. Cunha is the one I'm not so sure about. But Šeško is someone who I think is going to do really well once he kicks into gear. There's a lot of confidence from me to Benjamin Šeško. Talking about the goalkeepers, unfortunately they missed out on Donnarumma, they missed out on Martinez, but they have signed, I think his name is Lammens, from Royal Antwerp. Will he come in and be the new #1? Will he be the main goalkeeper? There's a lot of Man United fans that will hope so, because Onana and Bayanda are crap. They're really bad. But I have United doing quite well this season. I mean, that's already a prediction that's not gone well. These league predictions, by the way, are from the start of the season, not from today. I haven't written them down this morning. This is from the start of the season. I have United finishing 5th, That won't happen now. I'm giving them a transfer rating a C because they missed out on a couple of key players and they still spent a lot of money and they're not using the players. Can't give you higher than C, I can't do it. Newcastle now, and wow, they've had a horrid window. Salvaged right at the end. So many players that they had on their horizons that they weren't able to get over the line. They eventually got Yoane Wissa to be the Isak replacement, but they've lost out on Šeško, just to name one of many. Trafford they missed out on, but there have been some good signings. I like Ramsdale as a backup option to Nick Pope. I think he could do quite well in the role that he will have at Newcastle. Nick Voldemarte is a player that I want to talk about quickly because he's just really exciting. I know he's only had half a season of senior football. He came in at Stuttgart and he shot Bundesliga at light. He went to Slovakia, played for Germany, was the top scorer in the entire competition, and when it came to that final against England, I was very nervous about them because of Nick Voldemarte. So once he gets started at Newcastle, he is another player who I expect to do really well. They've got so many great options out wide. Jacob Ramsey, who I mentioned earlier on, is a player who I expect to do quite well there. Anthony Elanga has already proven at Newcastle that he's the kind of player that they need. And that goes along with Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes, who have already got their attacking options. There's a lot of great depth, especially going into a Champions League season. They've signed the Milan defender Thor. I'm going to say Thor because it sounds cooler. They signed him as well, so that's another great option in the defence. So actually Newcastle, when you think about it, haven't had that bad of a window. That's until you think about Alexander Isak. He's the only notable departure from Newcastle. He's the real source of income for Newcastle. But he has made Newcastle look like right twats in the sense of I think the Isak situation from both parties is quite disrespectful, to be honest. Isak was a great servant for Newcastle when he was playing there. He was a lot of the life at Newcastle, along with the likes of Bruno and Joe Linton. You know, Isak scored so many goals. He only played 109 times, which I thought he played more, but he only played there for 3 seasons, 109 appearances, and like I say, he was a great player. But he demanded the move, and the way he did it was really disrespectful. I think he has tarnished his reputation as a footballer. I think he's been quite bratty, and it's going to be very easy for fans of other clubs to dislike Isak. But it's a shame that the Premier League match at St James's Park has already happened, because I can picture it right now, whether it happens some point this season, whether there's a cup fixture. I'd love it to be a Champions League night if both teams get to like a quarter-final. Alexander Isak scores in front of the main stand at Newcastle, runs towards the main stand, Adebayor style, and celebrates in front of the Newcastle fans. That would be cinema. That's something I'd love to see. However, I've got to give the rating. Newcastle was going to give them an F based on the whole scenario, but I like the signings they brought in. I'm going to give them a C, because I have good confidence in the players they've brought in. They're going to finish 6th, I think. I have lost track of what I've said now. Forest, boo! Give them an F, finish 20th. No, seriously, I've got to talk properly about Forest. And it hurts me to say it, there's a couple of players that they've signed that I quite like. Dan Ndoye has been quite fun from Bologna. Amari Hutchinson and James McAtee are great options as well. Tally Mwendo is probably going to be quite good. Zinchenko on loan is another player who, yet again, is a good loan option to have. He's got a lot of experience. They have spent over £200 million, though, Forest, and almost a quarter of that has gone to Botafogo. They've signed 4 players from Botafogo. They spent about 35 mil, so it's about a fifth of the money has gone to Botafogo. Whatever the ownership thing is, it seems quite suspicious to me why you'd sign 4 unknown players from Botafogo. I don't expect any of them to get much game time, but I could be wrong with that. But there seems to be a lot of issues behind the scenes with Forest as well, between the owner and the manager, so I don't expect Forest to have anywhere near as good of a season as they did last season. I've got them finishing 14th. I'm going to give their business a C. Sunderland now, I like this lot. I really like this lot. I am so glad they are back in the Premier League. They have spunked so much money up the wall to keep themselves in the Premier League. Over 180 mil, I think it is. I'm just going to rattle some names on the top of my head. Talby, Lefay, Brobby, Geertruida. I know Lefay was there anyway, but he's signed permanently now. Reinildo, Granit Xhaka is the main one I've got to talk about. He is a great leader, a great general. He has been very open and transparent about why he's moved to Sunderland, which A lot of people have discredited it for. I respect the decision to be open about that even more, because it gives more of a connection between him and the Sunderland fans. And the fact that Sunderland have given him the armband straight away shows a lot of confidence, and it's a smart decision because he will pull that team through anything. They have won 2 of their first 3 games, both games being at the Stadium of Light. So yeah, again, like I said about Ellen Road earlier, Stadium of Light could become a bit of a fortress. Sunderland are staying up. They have to stay up. They've spent nearly 200 million quid. They have to stay up. It is a shame that we're not going to see Joe Bellingham in the Premier League because they sold him to Dortmund, but I think it's a great move for him. I really thought we were going to get a Bellingham in the Premier League, and I think we will one day, whether it be either or both. But I like the business Sunderland have done, but if they don't stay up and they do go down after spending this much money, could be a problem. Real problem for Sunderland if they don't stay up. But they will. We'll be fine. I really like the manager as well. I don't want to talk about this lot. Because their window has been sensational. I'm going to get him out of the way now because saying his name, seeing his face, especially in a Tottenham shirt, it irritates me. Xavi Simons. We were led to believe for 2 whole months that he was going to be a Chelsea player, that he wanted to join the club and the move was going to happen. Chelsea didn't show enough ambition, they didn't sign him. So I have 2 months worth of hyping myself up on the player for him to go to them. And he's going to do really well, and I'm scared that he's going to come to Stamford Bridge and put a rocket past Sanchez. And they've also signed Kolo Muani, who Jamie is having a wet dream because he got number 39 and he's going to score several goals. I like the signing of Kudus as well. Paulinho is a great option in the midfield as well. They've done some great business. They've lost their captain in Heung-min Son, and the fact that they've got 20 mil for Son, you've got to respect it. Can I give them an A? Can I give them an A? I like what Thomas Frank's doing, and I like the fact that Tottenham are actually spending money. I like it for their fans. I hate the fans, and I hate Tottenham. But on a neutral face, it's nice to see that Tottenham are in for a running. And if I was rattling off my predictions right now, they could very easily finish in a Champions League spot this season. I have them finishing 7th originally, but don't be surprised if they finish higher. And I'm going to give them an A. I'm going to give them an A. Fuck. You know that clip about Man United a minute ago? Brings me here, this lot of shit. And apart from Diouf, has their business been good at all? They've kept Bowen. I think Bowen's a player who, at this point, you've got to really be worried about. He's going to leave every window. But he's been a great captain, and he's a very passionate man, and he's probably going to stay at West Ham forever to keep hold of his marriage and to keep Danny Dyer happy. Not his wife, the other one. Hermansen is a keeper that I worry about. He was with Leicester last year, got relegated with them, conceded a lot of goals. So that's a worrying sign. Todibo, they've got on permanent now. I think he's still got potential to be a great young defender, but he hasn't shown it yet this season. But that could be where they played at a 3 at back and were terrible. They did really well against Forest, which I'm so happy about, because I like West Ham. Unlike most Chelsea fans, I like West Ham. They can't play at a 3 at back. They have to play 4 at back because that performance against Forest was so much better. Callum Wilson, an experienced striker who will get goals. He's already got one. Mateus Fernandes, yet again, about 40 million from Southampton. So Southampton are raked in some good money this window. But Mateus Fernandes has to prove that worth now. You know, he's got to try and battle his way into a midfield where there's Ward-Prowse and Souček, so we'll see how that develops. Keeping Lucas Paquetá, who was rumoured to go to Villa, but he is staying at West Ham, that is a great signing. That goal against Chelsea, I'll be real, that goal against Chelsea was fantastic. Sanchez should have got a hand to it, but that don't matter, it was a great finish. West Ham, a lot of people have now got West Ham going down. I don't think that's going to be the case. I can still see Potter getting sacked. Well clear of this side of January, and they'll get a new manager and it'll be fine. Solskjaer's on the market, Mourinho's on the market. Oh my god, could you imagine Mourinho at West Ham? Like, could you actually imagine it? Yeah, they're gonna get a D or an E. They can have an E. Wolves, it's gonna be quick. It sounds like I've rattled through the end of this video quite quickly. 20 teams, to talk about 20 teams individually is quite a difficult task, but Wolves make it quite easy. Are any of their signings interesting? Like, really, I don't know any of them. They have spent over 100 million and they have lost a lot of significant players. Cunha, Aït-Nouri, Fabio Silva, Guedes, and they have lost their opening 3 matches. They're going down. This is the year Wolves go down. They're finishing 19th. They can have an F. That was a very negative way to end the video. It's drained the energy out of me. Stop looking at me. I'm not going to bark. But I had the urge to bark then. So there you have it. That's what I think about the transfer window. Ultimately, Liverpool and Tottenham have done really well. The other big six teams have done alright. And I think 2 of the 3 promoted sides are saying up. Burnley and Sunderland are like the business. And that's just how I see it. The league predictions have probably been quite erratic, so I'll leave my table. The table can go there. That is the official table, whether I've said that in the video or not. Whatever. It's nice to be back on the platform. If you want an editor, hit me up.